Hello, hello. As we are waiting for folks to join, I'll just kind of briefly reintroduce myself. So my name's Katie Hammond. I will be going over the advanced search and features. So kind of going into a little bit more depth from what we saw in the previous web demonstration. And so I'll be spending the first about 10 minutes for kind of presenting and walking through in a little bit more detail. And then for the last few minutes, we'll have some question and answer time as well. So feel free to add your questions in the chat as I'm kind of presenting through if there's any questions that come up. All right, so it looks like we are getting a good number of folks joining here. So again, I'll be giving the presentation, and we also have Kate Beauchamp here. She will be supporting for our session today. So Kate is on our team, and she is one of our very valuable AC Prism members. So thank you, Kate, for supporting with our session today. So unless anyone has any questions, I will just kind of dive right into it. So I will go ahead and share my screen. So we are back to the website here. So we're going to actually start with the measure search process, and I'm going to go through kind of a more specific example, so we can look at some more particular details of what might be an example search. And I'm going to clear the previous search that I'd done for the demonstration. So in this example, imagining that I am a pediatric practice, I'm interested in finding a developmental screening for my well child visit protocol. Specifically, I'm looking for social emotional development as the topic of choice. And I'm interested in looking for kind of a specific language. I'm interested in a measure that is offered in Arabic specifically. My top priorities are that the measure is both easy to use, potentially quick and easy, and also is either low cost or free. So I'm not necessarily sure if I need the measure to be free, but kind of having a low cost overall is important to me. So that's something that I'm going to consider. So based on these priorities and these items that I'm looking for, I'm going to select a few of the filters and then also set my preferences. So for the topic, I'll select social emotional development. For the cost, I'm actually not going to select cost because, again, I haven't decided on what are my kind of overall goals for cost. I can be flexible. For the measure type, I'm going to select screening tool. And for languages, I'm going to select Arabic. And since I want this measure to be pretty quick, under the time to complete, I'm actually going to write 0 to 5. So I'm interested in a measure that can be completed within 5 minutes, ideally. So as you can see, we have a few measures that result from these searches, but I'm also going to select edit my preferences. So we have the usability up here from the last search, but this actually is helpful because usability is one of the things I'm looking for, something that's quick and easy to use, and also the cost score is important to me. So I'm going to set the preferences, and as you can see, the diamond shape updates so that the dotted line reflects those preferences, and you can pretty easily start to get just kind of an overall glimpse of the score compared to the preferences here. So let's say I'm looking through these lists. I actually recognize a couple of these measures. I see the SWIC. I'm interested in potentially looking at that one in more detail. And I also recognize the PEDS. And just looking at it, it looks like the shape is a little bit different from the SWIC. So I'm interested in learning more about why that is. So I select both to compare. And I select the compare button. And again, we have this kind of direct side-by-side comparison of the two measures. So let's say that I'm interested in saving these to look at a little bit in more detail later. I can favorite these measures. So all I have to do is click these hearts up at the top here, and that will send these measures to My Favorites page. So we'll look at that a little bit in more detail, but essentially this saves the measures that you select so that you can view them later at a different time. So looking at these two measures, kind of comparing the two, you can see for the SWIC, it has a relatively high usability and cost score. So it looks like those are the strengths of this measure. Whereas looking at the PEDS, it looks like the technical merit and the cultural relevance are the strengths of this measure. So as you can see, there's kind of different comparison criteria here. Scrolling down, looking a little bit more at the descriptive information to get a sense of which may be a better fit for your needs. Looking at the various descriptive information, you can see they're both very quick to complete, 2 minutes and 2 to 4 minutes. One thing you note is that the SWIC is free and accessible, whereas the PEDS is at cost. So you think at this point, this is probably meaning that the SWIC is a little bit more in your favor for your needs, since usability and cost are two of the items that you're thinking about specifically. So say you'd like to look a little bit more in depth at this measure, we can go ahead and click on the measure page itself. We have the full amount of descriptive information here. We also have the scores. We can also see these related measures. If you'd like to leave a comment on the measure, you also have that ability to do this here on this page. As you're looking at the related measures, you take a look and it looks like we have 3 measures overall in the SWIC measure family. So we have the measure that we're looking at right now, which is the baby pediatric symptom checklist. We also have the SWIC related to milestones and the preschool pediatric symptom checklist. So you look at these, decide that the baby pediatric checklist is the one that's more related to your needs. You're also interested in what other programs might be using this measure. So you click the button, and so you're taken through the Promise Ventures curated page, and it actually shows you which program is using this measure. So you see that the Develop PT Pediatrics is using this measure, and it also has another list over here of other measures that this program uses. So going back to our main page, given all of this information, you're pretty interested in selecting this measure in particular for your use. So you can just click the Access Measure button, and then you're taken directly to the Tufts Children's Hospital page, and you're able to click to directly download this particular measure. And so you can have a copy of the measure immediately for your use. So clicking back, just going back to the measure page. Kate, how are we doing on time?
I have about 3 minutes left in your presenting time.
All right, thank you, Kate. And again, as you're having questions, feel free to add those to the chat. So one thing I wanted to kind of go back and highlight is the My Favorites page. We talked about this a little bit earlier. So if you click on My Favorites, you'll see that all of the measures are collected here that you can view at any time. You can also click directly into that measure as well. But say that you are not interested in having those measures as your favorites anymore, you can deselect and then they will vanish from your collected favorites. So it's kind of up to you to choose which ones you would like to preserve and which ones not. So the last thing I'm going to go a little bit more in depth about with the time that we have is the measure family specifically. So the measure family is something that we have kind of created as a definition for any collection of measures that may be related with different language versions, different age versions, but are all part of the overall kind of same measure umbrella. So for example, these are the measures in the SWIC family. And if you click on this measure family link, you can get both the definition that we use as well as the measures that are related. So you can find that both by clicking through this pink link here or on the measure page itself, that related measures category as well. And just one last time before we move into the question and answer section, I'll just go through each one of the filters here. So we have the topic, which is essentially the domain related to the measure. And as you can see, we have a pretty wide variety, but again, this list will continue to expand as we add more measures over time. So we start with social emotional development, executive function, caregiver related measures, parenting measures, family home environment, and classroom and childcare quality are some of the ones that we have here so far. We also have this cost filter. So either a measure is at cost, it may be free and readily accessible, or it may be free but requires another level of access. So maybe that's registering and creating an account of some kind. So that would be counted as free and not accessible because there's that kind of extra step there. We also have age range where you're able to select either adult measure or you can select, currently we have between 0 and 8 years to select the age range of the child. For respondent, this is essentially who is completing the survey. So, whether it's caregiver self-report, caregiver reporting on child, maybe the teacher reporting on child. Some measures require an administrator, but not all. So for those that do require an administrator, we have this category here in case there is an additional person who's required to administer the measure specifically. We also have measure type. And again, this is another category that we're going to continue to add measures to and kind of flesh out over time. For languages, we have added a variety of languages here, but one of our goals for our future measures is to continue adding more measures other than English. So this is a goal for us in the future as well. Lastly, we have time to complete, which you can essentially select the time to complete between 0 and 60 minutes. However, just recognizing that a lot of observational measures do take a while longer, so they may be a bit longer than the 0 to 60. So that's just a caveat there. So with that overall kind of run through of the filters and a little bit more about the process, I would love to move into the question and answer session.